Well, let's see who's banging the war drums. Well, first of all, Rishi Sunak has been doing a tour. We were talking about James Cleverly on Friday's program. For Rishi Sunak, well, he's gone to meet President Abbas, Mahmoud Abbas, who's the president of the Palestinian Authority. He said that he expressed his deep condolences for the loss of civilian lives in Gaza. And they agreed that all parties should take steps to protect civilians. But again, the rhetoric is to minimize civilian casualties from Rishi Sunak. It's not about stopping civilian casualties. That was followed up with him on a conference call with Joe Biden, with Trudeau from Canada, with Macron from France, Olaf Scholz in Germany, Meloni in Italy, and so on. So it seems like the diplomacy campaign for what? For more warfare seems to be continuing. Grant Shapps is the same. The UK and the US are determinedly standing up to aggressors and terrorists and supporting our friends and partners in the fight for freedom and security. So what's going on in Gaza is a fight for freedom and security. Our nations were the first to provide Ukraine with the sustained support they need to beat Russia. And now we're working alongside regional partners to prevent escalation and protect civilians in the Middle East. We're going to protect civilians in the Middle East by killing them. That seems to be the best way as far as Grant Shapps is concerned. And in order to back that up, he followed up with an article in the Express. The UK has a pivotal role to play as a valued broker. Now, he didn't say as a valued peace broker, and I'm going to argue it's as a valued arms broker. And people may dispute that or argue with me about that, but please do if you think I'm wrong. Read the article and decide for yourself. Lloyd Austin then, this is what he was saying, following detailed discussions with President Biden on recent escalations by Iran and its proxy forces across the Middle East region. Today, I directed a series of additional steps to further strengthen the Department of Defense posture in the region. So this was an announcement on Saturday. He said, first, I redirected the movement of the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group to the Central Command Area of Responsibility. This Carrier Strike Group is in addition to the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group, which is currently operating in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. I have also activated the deployment of a terminal high-altitude area defense battery, as well as additional Patriot battalions on locations throughout the region to increase force projection for U.S. forces. Finally, I've placed an additional number of forces on preparation, that should say, that's his mistake there, to deploy orders as part of prudent contingency planning to increase the readiness and ability to quickly respond as required. And so it continues to ramp up. In the meantime, Mark, discussing the trajectory of the war in Israel.
Yes, the American Enterprise Institute, as I announced last week, had this program, and I mentioned that I'd cover it, and I did virtually. And the AEI is one of many think tanks on the infamous Think Tank Row, Massachusetts Avenue, D.C. Tons of think tanks there, Brookings and many other. Anyway, the program was decidedly biased in favor of Israel, but nevertheless very informative. And I think it gives us at least a little bit of a preliminary glance at where this is all headed, at what the ultimate outcome might be. This is some of my own writing here to document what happened. Former CIA Persian Gulf military analyst Kenneth M. Pollack, speaking October 16 for this AEI program, a notoriously neoconservative Washington think tank, he bluntly advocated nation building for Gaza, the Western version that we know of nation building, meaning that the war-torn strip of Palestinian land would be even more beholden to the dictates of Israel and the United States. The implication is that any remnants of Palestinian self-determination would be highly degraded, if not eliminated altogether. Pollack, a Jewish resident scholar at AEI, and that's not gratuitous, we need to know the biases and orientations of the speakers, served on the National Security Council and formerly worked for the pro-Israeli Sabin Center of Brookings, one of several globalist think tanks there I mentioned. Brian Katulis, a senior fellow and vice president of policy at the Middle East Institute, also spoke and gave a somewhat more balanced view of the Israeli-Hamas-Palestinian turmoil, although the overall program was Israeli biased. I mentioned the moderator, AEI senior fellow Danielle Pletka, made no secret of her Jewish heritage while casting aspersions on the Palestinians in a dehumanizing tone. And she interviewed Polak and Katulis for this program, covered live online by UK Column, and the program was entitled Discussing the Trajectory of the War in Israel, a curious tag that omits the fact that most of the destruction in the Gaza Strip, an enclave nearly the size of Manhattan, very densely populated, that's where most of the destruction is taking place, at least now. And the title even seemed to be a little slanted there. But Polak claimed at the time when this program happened that while the risks of escalation of hostilities he believes are lower than many believe, which is interesting, although he didn't substantiate that statement, and so on and so forth. He did say that he believes Hamas will fight to the last Palestinian and to the last Hezbollah. They'll do that, quote unquote. And Iran, Polak added, did not order Hezbollah to join in the initial attack against Israel on October 7th. He believes that was not ordered by Iran. He further opined that while Hezbollah may assume it can inflict enough casualties to get Israel to back down, that Lebanese political party and militant group, which has a paramilitary wing, he believes is no match for the Israeli military. Mr. Katulis, for his part, equated what happened on 10/7 in Israel and said it was analogous to 9/11 in the United States back on 9/11/01. And Katulis added, you can't have normalization deals that ignore the millions of Palestinians who live there. So he was a little more sympathetic toward Gaza and all that. But Polak came back around, Mike, and basically emphasized that the future of Israel as he sees it, and he's been with the CIA for several years, is nation building on Western terms once Hamas will be destroyed. He believes Hamas can and should be destroyed, and then they would bring about Western-directed nation building in terms of Gaza. And probably that, in my opinion, would harm the self-determination and democratic impulses of the Palestinians. So a very revealing program in what it might foretell for Gaza.
Okay, thank you, Mark.